Editing photographs requires a combination of technical skill, patience and honesty. And editing your own work is one of the hardest endeavours a photographer can undertake because it requires an objectivity that can take years of practice to acquire. So let's start with the simplest of tasks in the beginning steps of editing, selecting the photographs that you would like to process and refine. Did I say the simplest? Deciding what images that you wish to include in a presentation, a folder on Facebook or to get printed is almost one of the most difficult procedures in photography. So let's see what you are trying to achieve. You have a memory card full of photographs and you have no idea what to do with them. You want to send some to your mum who lives in another country, and you want to get some printed up for your boyfriend or girlfriend to put into an album that you have decided to start together. But where do you begin? A great editing program really helps with making your final selection. There are many programs that work really well, but Lightroom and Bridge are both excellent programs by Adobe for the selection and categorisation of images. I use Bridge to select images and do a great deal of my basic batch processing, and Photoshop to do my hero shots for publication or exhibition. The difficulty in picking a great single photograph is only trebled when you're trying to pick a great sequence of photographs. Creating some form of narrative is generally necessary when picking which photographs work together and which don't to make a convincing edit. Narrative is a linear concept, so starting your edit at the beginning of a journey of any description is always a good way to open the story. So we are going to go to Bridge to edit our story. Say, for instance, the photos you wish to send to your mum are of a high tea with a couple who have become your new British friends. You worked hard to get some really great shots, and it's midwinter where you are living, and it's summer where she is. You want to capture what it's like to live in this rain-drenched British environment near a forest and send her a little photographic slideshow on the internet. The first photos in an interesting sequence should set the scene. So perhaps this was a shot of the couple organising the tea, and it could include some close-up shots of the objects that were to be consumed later on. Try setting the mood by getting people to just be themselves and use photographs that have lots of mood and show that the couple are bright and happy friends to be with. Perhaps then the next set of images that are more intimate are helpful. This could include a portrait of your friends with their arms around each other. The middle part of a set of photographs can flesh out a story and really describe what that story is. So photos of the activities that occurred while walking in the forest, perhaps, would be a good way to continue the narrative. Finally, a few shots of people running to get under shelter from the rain would certainly round the sequence off well. Applying this kind of structure to all mini photo essays is quite logical and can be very effective in developing an idea. The maximum amount of photos that are really necessary would not be more than 20. For most, the attention is waning at around about 12 images, so the stricter the edit, the more grateful your audience is for not being tortured, and that includes your mother. A variety of angles and compositions keeps people more interested than endless similar photographs. So remember when you're shooting that this is the outcome you wish to achieve, and then your editing will be better. The art of the picture story is one of the highest forms of photographic art, but once it is perfected, it is an awesome way to communicate. So now we have selected the photographs that we want to present to people, we need to process them in a photo editing program. The most commonly used program is Photoshop. So let's take a very basic look at some of its functions. So now we're in Photoshop. First, let's look at the screen layout. At the top, there is a variety of drop-down menus, which essentially control the file storage, the selection, how you view the image on screen, and one of the unique features of Photoshop, the ability to make layers. When we get to the window with the drop-down menu, we can pick which of the various functions that we wish to use to clean up, retouch, or create effects in our photograph. From Photoshop CS5 onwards, there are also controls for creating 3D effects and animation. The most basic window that should be opened in Photoshop is the toolbar. Using this most closely replicates the photographic darkroom of the past, and many of the tools were derived from actions we made in a chemical darkroom. These tools have a variety of different uses, and in combination with the use of layers and the adjustment tools, we can completely change the look and expression of a raw photograph or DNG. So let's select a single photograph from our high-T shoot and turn it from a digital negative into a finished JPEG that can have a few different outcomes. Developing a consistent way of working with your digital negatives is very important if you wish to do your own printing, because the way you process your photos can really add to the style of photography that you make. If you want to go for a specific look, write down what your process for arriving at it is. It will help you in the future. In Photoshop, there are often many ways to arrive at the same outcome, so it is worth experimenting with a number of different looks to see ultimately what you think is the best fit for your own photographs. So the first place to start when we process a digital negative is with the exposure. Is the image correctly exposed? So let's go to the Layers tab and have a look. By pressing the automatic adjustments, we can see what would have happened if we had increased or decreased the exposure when we made the picture, but we can also decide to make custom choice about the exposure. What we are looking at doing is retaining as much information within the image so that we can get maximum detail. The greatest range of tonal values in every photograph is what we really want to achieve. If we have blown out a highlight so there is no detail, or created a black hole of a shadow somewhere in the composition, these things lead the eye straight to them and somehow ruin the overall reading of the image. So when we actually take a photograph, the best idea is to try and control all these issues within the camera. After sorting out the exposure, we then have to make a decision on whether we want to do a black and white or colour photograph. Colour can be enhanced or natural, or even desaturated to a point where it appears faded. And if we want to do black and white images, there are several methods of desaturating the negative. There is a whole range of adjustments that can be used to create different effects on the image. So to increase contrast, you can do this or that, and possibly another range of implements entirely. As you can see, every time you open a new adjustment, it opens a new layer, which can be kept as a part of the final image or deleted because you don't like what you have created. With layers, you can also use a range of tools to actually paint over or mask different areas of your image so that you can completely change the look of a person's face or the expression of a landscape. This is just a quick example of retouching blemishes out of someone's skin. These techniques are used at very high end in fashion and advertising industries to make models look absolutely perfect. Using masks is another very unique tool in Photoshop and can be used to completely control one area of the photo. By using the different selection tools and turning the selected areas into paths, it is possible to remove or add sections of information to existing photographs. One of the greatest things about Photoshop, though, is that you can pretty much change anything you wish to retrospectively by either deleting or saving layers or working back through the history tabs. Sharpening the final image is the last thing to do before compressing the photograph for filing. Once you have decided that the photograph is a finished product, storing and saving the files is a matter of organisation. If you don't wish to compress all the layers that you have been working on, as you think you may wish to do another session of editing the photo, you can save it as a Photoshop file or PSD. Or if you're happy with the work you have done, then you can save the photo as a TIFF or JPEG file. Photoshop is a very expansive program, and this lesson has just been a brief overview of what it can do. More specific needs require a bit more knowledge about the program, so Photoshop is really a complete study module on its own. Have a good look at the program and try and familiarise yourself with it, as it will be your good friend in the future. Next lesson we will look at how we can share the finished photographs. So until then, happy snapping!